Right. So these were all CSEC questions. All right. Hence the reason they had questions about drawing the annotated diagram of a kidney tubule or something. So put it down. Let me see. Right here. Yeah. With the aid of a fully annotated diagram of a kidney tubule, explain how urine is produced and gets to the bladder. Right. So these were all CSEC questions. But I thought it was really nice and in-depth to test your knowledge on the topic. So I decided to use it as well. And well, of course, it'll help the CSEC students, all right? Both CSEC and GCE. All right, so for this first question, we had the diagram of a nephron. And as we had learned before, the nephron, remember, each kidney is made up of thousands of nephrons. And this is where the actual filtration takes place. All right, and from the time the blood is filtered, once all of the substances are filtered out of the blood, only useful substances are reabsorbed, and then the excess is drained out by the urethra, then it goes to the bladder, then it comes out. Okay, so we had to label the different parts of the nephron, and then you also had to state what it was responsible for. Okay, so basically, right, what is part A? What would y'all say is part A? Very good. And yeah, your answer for that was correct, Dimitri. Like I was reading through, I got your homework by the way for coordination, and also seeing the one for this too. So yeah, part A is the Bowman's capsule. So somebody else tell me what happens, what is it that takes place in the Bowman's capsule? How is it relevant to the whole process? I'm sure you're going over all your presentation now trying to find the answer, and I'm sure you're doing that. Flipping through notes, trying to open up the presentation fast.
Well, miss, you well know.
I know all it too well.
And the thing is, I use in my computer, so.
Exactly. You weren't here. Hi, David. Well, you're excused for the while. Emily, Miss Emily.
Miss, I don't think I was here too. I think I fell asleep for this lecture.
Oh wow, that helps.
You're welcome. So right now I Google it. What is a nephron?
Oh gosh.
Maybe after you could explain to me.
Oh gosh. Yes, it filters the blood. So what is it that happens? Like how is this how does this process of filtration actually start? Because when the blood, okay, so in order for the blood to come here first, remember, we need to have a blood vessel that supplies the blood, right? And then the blood vessels would break down into the capillaries, which would wrap all over the nephrons, okay? Now, when it comes here, the blood vessels are like in a knot or in a ball, all right? And then because of the amount of pressure that it would have, that would be built up in this area, the Bowman's capsule, it forces the liquids out of the blood. Well, what happens is that like everything, the smaller molecules that have been dissolved in the blood plasma would be squeezed out of the blood, and it enters into the nephron. Okay, it enters into the Bowman's capsule, and then it continues to pass through the nephron. It's not that the blood passes through the nephron, eh? So I don't want you all to get that confused. It's not that the blood comes out of the blood vessel and then re-enters the blood vessel. No. The substances that have been dissolved in the blood plasma are what comes out. So like glucose, salts, water, all of these things are molecules. These molecules are small enough to fit through the spaces in order to enter into the nephron. So that's why those substances are all there. All right, so you have like water, glucose, salts, and even urea as well. All right, because remember, urea is made in the liver from the breakdown of what exactly? What is urea made from, people? Right, so it is made from the breakdown of excess amino acids, yes. So what happens is that when with the excess amino acids, your liver breaks down the amino acid molecule, removes the energy component from the molecule, and the ammonia in it, right, the NH3, is actually broken down into urea, which is a less toxic form. Very good, Dimitri, right? Renal corpuscle. Here is Google answer. Corpuscle consists of a tuft of capillaries called the glomerulus, and an encompassing Bowman's capsule. Thank you for that Google answer. But yeah, all in all, it's just basically the bunching up of the blood vessel here, right? In the Bowman's capsule, and then that causes a pressure buildup, which causes the molecules of the smaller molecules of like water, glucose, salts, urea, and stuff that will pass through and enter into the nephron, right? And all around each nephron, you have blood vessels that are entangled around, so that when whatever substances are not needed to be passed out but are needed by the body will become reabsorbed. So hence the reason we have the entangling of blood capillaries all around. All right. So yeah, when it passes through here now, what happens is that your body will need glucose and it also needs water. So typically all of the glucose and the water would be reabsorbed. All right. So it's like by the time you reach to the end now, you might have some salts because your body may not need all of the salt, because remember it has to maintain that right osmotic concentration, okay, in order to maintain homeostasis, all right, maintain that constant internal environment, all right. So basically, by the time you get to the end now, you have urea, you have a little bit of water, you have salt, all right, and basically any substance that needs to be excreted will be excreted. All right. So that was part A. Part B is what? All right, so the function of the nephron, nirvana, is really to filter the blood. Okay, so each nephron, not only does it filter the blood, but it also, the process of this filtration is urine. So suppose the function of the nephron is basically, yes, to filter the blood and to form urine. All right, to get rid of any excess substances that that are not needed by the body. All right, and these nephrons are found within the kidneys. So you have two kidneys, a right and a left. Inside each one of them, you have thousands of nephrons. You actually have a forest of nephrons inside, and each one of these are responsible for filtering the blood and producing the urine that you would get. All right. Okay, so what is part B? Very good. It is a tubule. If you have the first convoluted tubule, that will also be correct. But yeah, it's a convoluted tubule, okay, or a tubule. All right. What is the function at that point? Yes, you have. Okay, so reabsorption. Do we have, okay, so explain what you mean by having reabsorption at that point. Yep, very good. So when the point at which the blood passes through into the Bowman's capsule is called filtration, right? And then as it goes along at that point where it is, you have, where you come across the convoluted tubule, that's where you have selective reabsorption taking place, where only substances to be used by the body would be reabsorbed. So excellent. Um, how about part C? What is part C? What is the name of that part of the nephron and what will it do? Yeah, loop of Henle, right? Not the ascending limb. It is really called the loop of Henle. Just yeah, remember the whole thing is like a loop. So and Henle probably discovered it, so they call it the loop of Henle, right? And what does it do? Dimitri had the right answer, yeah. Function is reabsorption. So basically, after these substances are filtered out of the blood, everything that goes passes through the nephron then would be reabsorption. Okay. The only time that you wouldn't have reabsorption taking place would be after everything has become reabsorbed. Then in the end now you will just have the excess urea, water, and salt, anything that is not needed and that is not reabsorbed by the blood, it would be passed out, right? So yeah, you have reabsorption taking place there as well. So very good. You made a good guess. All right. The rest of you, you're understanding as we're going along? Okay, wonderful. Wonderful. All right, what is the name of the hormone secreted by the pituitary gland when there is not enough water in body cells? Not enough water. Dimitri's answer was correct. So you don't have to answer. The rest of them had to answer. Come on, there, the 1 mark question. Fight for it. Who will obtain this 1 mark? Yeah, exactly. Let's give the others a time to shine. Like Emily, a time to, rush for your answer. is an acronym of 3 letters, 3 words, 1 with a hyphen. It starts with A. Still nothing? Google taking long for all, yeah. Alright, so when there's not enough, wait, has already been doing so. Just the Sunday vibes or what? Actually, I could relate to all. For some reason, I feeling real tired today too. Oh. Oh, okay. Well, don't worry. Just now, it will be time for you all to go anyhow. And then the lesson for today is not that intellectually challenging. Tomorrow we have a lot to cover, so at least today you're getting a little break. Very good, David, except you have it a little bit back for front. You put anti-hormone diuretic. It should be ADH, which is anti-diuretic hormone. But very good. I applaud your effort. Excellent. And yes, nirvana is a long word, right? So I'll type it here, anti-diuretic hormone. So when there is not enough water in body cells and your hypothalamus senses this, it will stimulate your pituitary gland to produce this ADH, and this ADH will be directly secreted into the bloodstream, and it goes directly to the kidneys. What this chemical does is it tells the kidneys to reabsorb, to absorb all of the water from the nephron. And in this process now, you would have, concentrated urine being produced. So when it is you are dehydrated, you haven't been drinking enough water, your urine will look a lot yellower than, well, as compared to somebody who's accustomed to drinking water or who drank a lot of water. All right? You all understand? Awesome. Wonderful. Very good, David. You're finding the answers in the notes. Very good. All right. Explain why the composition of urine produced at X would differ in someone who drank a lot of water compared to someone who drank no water for over 24 hours. So you all could take turns in answering this question. So let's look at somebody who drank a lot of water. What happens? So the blood passes through the brain and the hypothalamus senses that there is a lot of water. So what happens? What does it do?
You need to pee?
Yes, Nirvana, you'll need to pee. But the composition of urine, they want to know how it's different. So yes, you have the urge to pee, but how is the pee different as compared to somebody who didn't drink as much water as you would have?
You're accustomed drinking the water and you're cleansing your bladder.
And what's in your bladder? It will what to your bladder?
It would cleanse your bladder, like clean it out.
No,
And you
well,
get accustomed to it.
okay. So what happens is that we want to know about the composition of urine. So basically, whether there is a lot, whether there is, when we talk about concentration of urine, we mean whether it's highly concentrated or dilute. So urine that is concentrated is is a lot more yellow. All right, and you would notice this as well when it is you all are dehydrated and you pee. But if it is you drink plenty water, yes, as you were correctly saying, Nirvana, you have to pee, and the pee is, just as Emily is saying, it's clearer because it's diluted, because of the amount of water that it contains. The reason why somebody who would have had a lot more water to drink would have more diluted urine is because when the brain senses that there is excess water, no ADH is produced, right? So therefore, none of the excess water is reabsorbed into the blood, and instead it is all passed out, and then you get you get diluted urine. However, somebody who had no water to drink for over 24 hours would have very concentrated urine, because when the hypothalamus senses this lack of water, it would stimulate the pituitary gland to secrete the antidiuretic hormone directly into the blood, which will be then taken directly to the kidneys. And when that happens, it will tell the kidney to reabsorb as much water as possible, all of the water. And once all of the water is reabsorbed from within the nephron, then you wouldn't have any water really coming out. All right, so then the urine that is produced now will be a lot, it will be darker, it will be more concentrated, it will be yellow, like real yellow. All right, you all understand? Okay, once you all understand. All right, so that question was for 4 marks. And Dimitri, your answer was good for that one as well. I think for this one, you answered the questions really well. It's just 1 or 2 minor changes I have to tell you about, but nothing much to talk about, right? So I'll tell you it when we get to it. Wow. David, that's a good one. Clear as a hydrated person's urine. I never heard that one. I just might sprang it from here. Oh gosh. All right, so in this table now, you're seeing the comparison of substances found in the urine of a healthy person and that of someone who is diabetic. So you would notice that the urine of a healthy person contains, well, mostly water and, some sodium chloride, some urea, no glucose and no protein. Now, nobody is to find protein in the urine, right? Protein molecules are too big to pass through to enter into the Bowman's capsule. So you would have no protein present in urine at all. Whether it's a healthy person or not a healthy person, you shouldn't have protein present. Glucose, however, you would see that the healthy person has no glucose, but a diabetic person has so much glucose in the urine. So now explain why there will be glucose in the urine of a diabetic person, even if the kidneys are functioning properly. You can't find protein present. It wouldn't happen because the molecules are too big to pass through, so it wouldn't happen. Right, so you have excess glucose found in the blood because there would be either insulin resistant or the insulin, not enough insulin is being produced, right? So what does that mean then? At the point where, remember the blood needs glucose. So if you already have an excess of an excess of glucose in the blood, at the point of reabsorption in the nephrons, in the kidneys, right? If you already have this glucose present in your blood, would you have reabsorption taking place? Yeah, some of it, yeah, it would be passed out in the urine, right? It would be passed out in the urine because what happened is that if it will not be reabsorbed unless the body has need for it. But because you have an excess of glucose in the body, no more could be absorbed. So therefore, it will just be passed out through the urine. And that is how, for a diabetic person, you will find glucose present in the urine, but not in that of a healthy person. Okay? Because remember, you're moving along concentration gradients, just as Daisha said. So it will go from high concentration to low concentration. But if you don't need, if your body already has an excess or a surplus, then the rest will be passed out. But typically, your body is supposed to reabsorb all of the glucose. Okay? Y'all understand? Okay. So somebody who has diabetes mellitus, what are two ways of managing this diabetes? How could you manage diabetes? You have your insulin, you're either insulin resistant, your immune system attacking those immune cells, those insulin cells, or your body not producing enough insulin, is not being absorbed. How could you live a healthy lifestyle? Still live healthy and manage your diabetes. Yes, very good. Eat a balanced diet and exercise. Now, a balanced diet has to be suited for the diabetic person, because somebody with diabetes won't be able to have as much carbs in their diet, and they will really have to watch what they eat and how the meals are being prepared. So it's a diabetic specific diet. Yes, Desha, you would have to lower your sugar intake, drink a lot of water, exercise, and then remember, exercise will help you to burn out the excess sugar that would have already been in the blood. All right? Yep, plenty vegetables as well. So when it is you exercise, that is like a natural way that you can burn out the excess sugar as it would be in your blood. Because remember, the more you exercise, the more you will need to respire, and that will help to use up glucose within the blood itself, so that it can help lower blood sugar. Yes, the doctor will prescribe tablets. A typical one is metformin, which will help to lower blood sugar. There are also tablets available which could help you pass out the excess sugar in your urine, like more. So, also not only taking tablets, but insulin as well. So you have the insulin injections, you take them, and that will help to decrease the amount of blood sugar that you have in your blood. Okay, but very good. So that was 2 marks. So once you had 2 ways of managing your diabetes, you're good to go. And all you would have had to do was state it. So diet, exercise, taking proper medication, taking insulin, drinking more water, avoiding sugary foods, all of that. All right, Emily. Go ahead. All right, so for part 4, you all would have had to draw a fully annotated diagram of a kidney tubule and explain how urine is produced and gets to the bladder. I don't know if you all had the opportunity to open the scanned concise notes that I sent you all, but this entire process here, from the whole kidney tubule all the way down to urine production, was actually outlined in a cool, concise manner. So for like a question like this, you can memorize that answer and you will be good. But basically, what would happen is that you start off at your glomerulus, where you have filtration taking place, molecules small enough to squeeze through the walls of the blood vessel to get into the glomerulus. Those molecules would be filtered out of the blood, and then it passes through the entire nephron, from the Bowman's capsule, through the convoluted tubules, through the loop of Henle, and all useful substances will be reabsorbed into the blood. And then finally, the liquid that remains is urine. Dimitri, how you can draw a straight line with a ruler? You try and use the markers on the ruler or something to help out with that. Or maybe it's, oh, your hand is shaped. But using the ruler though, you could use the ruler for support. Or but the hand that you're holding the ruler with will shake. You just need to breathe. Take your time. Take your time. Right? That's no problem. At least for bio, well, I mean, straight lines, yeah, you lose marks for that. Depending on if it is you're drawing like a sketch, it'll, depending on how it is, it'll be cool. Welcome back, Emily. Glad you were able to offload. All right, next question. Suggest why urine production is important. Why is it important to produce urine? Precisely, to filter the blood, get rid of toxins so there won't be a buildup. What else? Think about urea. Yeah, David, to get rid of certain waste in the body. You also have to mention about urea. So why is urea important? Yeah, Dimitri, shoot your question. All right, so kidney stones are formed from substances that cannot be digested in your body, and they eventually build up until a stone, like an actual stone, is formed. All right, that's literally how it is when they remove it, when the surgeon removes the kidney stones from within you. All right, it's literally a stone. So, like for example, excess black pepper. Black pepper is not something that is digested in your body. Excess calcium as well also leads to the formation of kidney stones. And uh, together, calcium together with iron as well, typically when it is you mix the two, they cancel off the effects of one another, and you can, once you have like an excess of calcium in your body, you can get kidney stones as well. So all of the excess black pepper or calcium or anything that your body will not digest or break down, it eventually builds up and then it gets hard, and until a stone is formed, and that's how you get kidney stones. That's how some kidney stones are formed. You're welcome. Now, the sizes of the kidney stones differ. Some of them are small enough to allow you to pass it out when you urinate. So like the doctor will give you a medication that will cause you to flush out your kidneys and flush out these stones. However, once it's big enough and you can pass it out, then you will need surgery. All right. And yes, you all were talking about urea. Right. So urea, right. So what happens is that urea is the less toxic form of ammonia. So your body needs to break it down and get rid of it, because if left in the body, it becomes toxic. So very good. All that is reason why urine production is important. And don't forget the most important thing about osmoregulation. Osmoregulation is regulating the fluid content in your body. So urine production also helps with that. All right, so it regulates the amount of water found in your body. It regulates the amount of salts in your body, everything. So urine production helps in osmoregulation. Okay, you all understand? Great. Wonderful. Glad you all understand. And explain, oh, Dimitri, that was for the question on explaining, how urine is formed and all of that. The one mistake that you had made was talking about how the blood goes through the collecting duct and is transported through through the urethra, and then you said the urethra carries urine to the bladder to be stored, right? Until, well, it's ready to be released. Now, what happened is that it's not the blood itself that goes through the nephron, right? It's really the substances from the blood. Because if it is the blood were to pass through, then you would have to have some other point where the blood would be absorbed. But it's not that the blood goes through the nephron and then the blood is absorbed. The substances that you want filtered out of the blood passes out of the blood and enters into the nephron, and then whatever is needed back by the blood, which is still running through the capillaries, will become reabsorbed throughout the nephron. So then the blood itself is not passing through the nephron, right? So just be careful with that. Because you're on the right concept, but you would have lost marks just for that one little, the way how it is you phrase that, right? You understand? Okay. And question 5, you all had to explain how plants excrete their metabolic waste. So what are some of the excretory mechanisms used in plants? Leaf folds, very good. Yes, David, you said plants excrete their metabolic waste through the stomata. Uh-huh, very good. Well, what type of metabolic waste is excreted through the stomata? What type of waste? Liquid or gas? Yeah, gas. Very good. Yeah, and it will excrete any excess oxygen, carbon dioxide that is not needed by the plant. Very good. All right. So through leaf fall, excess gases are excreted through the stomata of leaves. And one other, give me one other form of excretion. One other form of excretion. Vacuoles. Not root. This one could actually be used as defense mechanism to prevent the plants from getting eaten as well. So that is a hint. Right. So it has to do with scent, and there's calcium oxalate, right? So what happens is that some of the excretory products remain in the plant and they form calcium oxalate, which is responsible for, like, some of the scents that you would get in plants. So like some of your essential oils, eucalyptus and so forth, those are produced as a result of calcium oxalate, which is produced from the storage of metabolic waste. All right, so not all of the metabolic waste is, you know, like actually leaves the plant. Some remains in the plant. And what happens is that it will be used as a defense mechanism for the plant. So when animals get at high scent, they wouldn't want to eat the plant. Or when, for example, some of it would be used to form tannins, which would be found in the barks of trees. That doesn't have a very pleasant taste. So it would deter animals from eating the plant as well. Yeah. So basically, you just have to list at least 3. Okay, you all understand? Okay, so that's the end of that one. Let's go on now to some of the one or two of the questions from this worksheet now. Okay, so the term drug and stuff, we wouldn't go there yet. After we have gone through the information on that, we'll come back to that question. But the one that we can do is this one. Okay, so here you would see that they showed you all a cell body and they specifically highlighted the, what is this called? What do you call this part here that they highlighted? Very good, it's called the synapse. So here you would see the neurotransmitters contained in the little vesicles, and then here you see receptor cells. So tell me, how is it that impulses are transmitted across a synapse? So tell me what it is happens here. You all could take this and answer the questions too. Describe how impulses are transmitted across a synapse. So when the impulse reaches here, how is it that it reaches from here to there? Okay, so that happens like in the other neuron, but what happens when an electric impulse reaches this area here? How are neurotransmitters utilized in this process? Remember, this is your axon terminal. So when an electric impulse reaches here, something happens with the vesicles and the neurotransmitters. It's not like the electricity just leaps whoop, and jumps across. All right, so it's not that they change the electrical impulse into a chemical, but it's just that these chemicals are already produced, all right, in the axon terminals. So what happens is that when the impulse reaches there now, it triggers these vesicles to move towards the end where the membrane is, to the end of the axon terminal. It triggers these vesicles to move there. And when it moves, all right, now what happens is that these chemicals contain the same message that would have been contained in the electrical impulse, right? That is no problem. Once it becoming clear now, that is no problem, all right? But what happened is that these chemicals contain the same message that is supposed to be transmitted by the electric impulse, all right? And then now, it goes now to the end here of the membrane, the ions cause like a gateway to become open in the vesicles, and then the little chemical transmitters are released from the vesicles. Once these chemical transmitters are released, then they bind to these receptors on the other side of the other neuron. When these neurotransmitters bind to them, because they have complementary shape for that, when that happens now, a charge builds up and then an impulse shoots across the other neuron. All right, so it's like, think about them as the neurotransmitters plugging on to the receptors of the other neuron, and then it will cause the electricity to shoot forth, to build up and to shoot forth. And it's the same message that would be relayed. All right, y'all understand that? Don't worry, I'll send in a next worksheet on all of this so y'all could practice it. Because I know this part, this be a bit tricky to get. Right? The impulse triggers the okay, so what happened is that the impulse will trigger the action of the vesicles. So it will trigger the vesicles to move towards the end of the membrane, to move towards the end of the axon, which is this point, right? And once they move to the end now, what happens is that there are charges that will cause the vesicles, these little circles here, to open up like a doorway to allow for the chemical transmitters contained in each one to be released. Once they are released, they will go now and bind to receptors on the other neuron, okay? Which would be represented by these, where you see in my cursor is pointing. They can bind because they have complementary shape, like a lock and key mechanism, just as we learned from studying enzymes. So because they have this complementary shape, these chemicals can be bounded to the receptors on the other neuron. Now, when the more of them go and bind to these receptor cells, an electric charge will be generated until it eventually will shoot across that same neuron, and that is how the message would be relayed. All right? Y'all understand? No problem. Okay. All right. Once y'all understand that part, right? Okay, and then what happens too is that the electricity, the electric impulse here is kind of grounded off, so it wouldn't be able to go forward. So that's how these neurotransmitters come into play now. All right. Now, you'll have the next one, you'll have to suggest how the structure of a synapse ensures that impulses travel in one direction. How is it that the synapse is so structured so as to allow for impulses to travel in only one direction? How is it that the structure of the synapse ensures that the electrical impulses are only traveled in one direction? So when the electrical impulse reaches here and these chemical neurotransmitters are released and binds to the receptors, right? How do we ensure that it only happens in one direction and they don't just go haywire? So we want to make sure that the impulses are only transmitted in one direction. How is it that the structure of the synapse allows for that? What about the way in which they are lined up? It has to do with the receptor cells and the vesicles, the neurotransmitter vesicles. And it also has to do with location. So what do y'all think? Well, it's not the, remember, it's not that the impulse going to the receptor cells, right? Is that when the impulse reaches, it triggers the neurotransmitters to be released from the vesicles. So those neurotransmitters are the chemicals, and those are the ones that go into bind to the receptor cells. Well, polarization would account for the continuation of the transmission, but we want to know what is it that ensures that the impulses only travel in one direction. How do we ensure that these chemical transmitters only go here and they don't go so, or they don't go the next direction or wherever? No, the answer really is, all of you take a call yourself and all they hear the answer. And it's on the PowerPoint. But it's like a point hidden in a point. So when all they give up and all they want the answer. Is because your receptors and your where the where the neurotransmitter vesicles are located, they're only located on one side. So hence the reason it could only have transmission occurring on one side. You don't have really, and you said nothing, Dimitri. Come now, man. And watch, you get it correct. I don't even. Right? It's because they're only on one side that it could allow for transmission on one side. Wait, David, that's a real typo you make there, boy. You could have saved us, boo. Sorry, I don't mean to make you. That real funny. Yeah, Dimitri, you got your answer correct. And now looking at it, there are only neurotransmitters on one side of the synapse, so therefore impulses can only go across from that side. Yep. I know it's a typo, David, but that is a real typo. Oh gosh. I had to tease you. But very good. You see, you're overthinking the answer. Okay, so before we could go on to the heroin, we'll need to go through the slides on that, right? What are 3 stimuli apart from pain that humans could detect? Heat, touch, Right, so heat and cold and stuff, right? Those will fall under temperature. Very good. We have sound, we have sense, we have taste, all right, light, we have all of that, right? Very good. So that's an easy 3 marks question there for you. All right. Now the eye. I know the eye is a bit complicated, but with practice you will get it, so don't worry. So you had the structure of the eye, and yeah, David, basically your 5 senses, right? Because remember, stimuli is what you could sense, all right? And it's any change in the environment. So anything that contributes to your change, all of your 5 senses and all of that, yep, all of those would be stimuli, sorry. So they gave you the structure of the eye and you all had to label it and also really structure it to function, right? So the part that carries impulses to the brain will be what? Very good. It's Y. Y is your optic nerve. So therefore, that's what will carry the impulses to your brain, and then your brain will sort the image out, and you'll be able to see accordingly. Very good. How about the part that focuses light to the back of the eye? Right, so focuses light to the back of the eye. Which part here focuses light to the back of the eye? No, that is the point to which the light would be focused. But what is it that focuses the light there? No, not W. Yeah, it will be the lens. So what is the lens? Very good. Yeah, it will be S, right? So the lens now, be it structure S, is what will focus the light onto the that part X there is really the fovea. Okay, so very good. How about what controls the tension of the suspensory ligaments? And then remember, your suspensory ligaments are what will be responsible for the lens thickness. Yes, very good. Q. Excellent. What letter is responsible for the tissue that will, where will the tissue that detects light and color be found? Yes, David, you're on a roll. Excellent. Your ruling eyes are the eye. So come, let me see if you're on this one now. All right, so we want the tissue that detects light and color in the eye. No, Nirvana, R will be the muscle themselves, the suspensory ligaments muscles. Yeah, it will be W. W is where you have the retina, and that's where you will have your cones and your rod cells, and that is where you would be receptive to light as well. So, yep. And where would you have the location of the most cone cells? X, very good. Where the fovea is, very good, right? So that is because remember, light is really focused there, and in order for you to see color and process it and everything, the most cone cells will be found at X, and those are the cells that are responsible for us receiving the clear image and a sharp image that we would receive. All right. Okay, now the next one would have probably required a little bit of research. All right, but I hope you all understand the answer. So they want to know how you call a pair of muscles in the eye work in opposition to each other to adjust the amount of light that enters the pupil. And then they wanted you to state the term that describes the action of a pair of muscles that work in opposition to each other. So basically, whichever part in your body that you have muscles working against each other in order to get a particular effect, you they just say cookie. That's a good one. Oh gosh, that's a good one, Desha. Unfortunately, no. Oh gosh, are they gonna know? In this case, when you have the muscles working in opposition to each other, they actually provide a favorable outcome, which is like, you know, actually allowing for something to happen. So we call this pair of muscles antagonistic. You know, like how you have the antagonist of a story. Well, these muscles are antagonistic in the sense that they work in opposition to each other to produce a certain effect. So like, for example, when one group of muscles contract, the other group of muscles will relax. And vice versa. When one group of muscles relax, the other group of muscles contract. So hence the reason they work against each other. One contracting, one relaxing, and vice versa. So those are called antagonistic muscles. I'll type it in for you all to see. So you could remember it. So like when it is you have your muscles that adjust the amount of light that enters the pupil, remember your pupil will shrink in bright light and then it will get larger in dim light. So remember you have your circular muscles and your radial muscles, and then remember circular, the ones around the eye. So when that contracts, your radial muscles will relax, right? And when your circular muscles contract, your pupils get smaller. But then when your radial muscles contract, then it allows for your pupil to get wider because your circular muscles now, which are the eye, will be relaxing. So it will allow for your pupil to expand. All right, so those are antagonistic muscles. You all understand? Okay, to give you all a proper visual, let me get the PowerPoint. Oh shoot, wrong thing. All right, so the part that I want to get to is here. Everybody seeing this? Right. So this is what I was referring to. These circular and these are your antagonistic muscles that work in your eye. So what happens is that when this contracts in bright light, this relaxes, okay? Because if you want your pupil to shrink, you cannot have this one contracting as well to pull it out, because then it will just be chaos, right? Because this one shrinking it and then this one pulling it open. So in order for you to get the reaction that you want, they have to work opposite each other. So because when it is you have muscles, they're typically supposed to contract to produce a certain effect. So when one contracts, the other relaxes. When the other one contracts, then this one will relax. So if you want your pupils to get smaller, your circular muscles will contract, sending in your pupil or making it smaller. When you want it to become wider, your radial muscle, which is this, will contract, pulling your pupil wider open. And in order for this effect to happen, then these circular muscles will relax. You all understand? You can see it a little bit better? And these are called antagonistic muscles. Okay, and that's what they were referring to. Wonderful. All right, so coming back to our question here. A pair of muscles in the eye that work in opposition to each other to view objects at different distances from the eye. They want to know what is the name of that now. What is the name of the process that allows the eye to view object at different distances? Anybody remembers? It's a name. It starts with A. I'm holding on. I ain't going anywhere. Excellent. Accommodation, because they are accommodating the light from near and distant objects. All right. So that whole process is known as accommodation. Very good. Why is it that the eye cannot easily identify different colors in low levels of light? What are the type of receptor cells responsible for us seeing in low light levels, low light intensities? Right, which one? She said cons again. Remember, it's cones. Which one of them allows you to see in color? That's okay, Desha. Which one allows us to see in color? Right, very good. Cone allows us to see in color, and rods allow us to see in dim light. All right. So your cone cells would allow you to see in color, and your rod cells would allow you to see in dim light. So the eye cannot easily in low levels of light because it's how your rods will process the images that are seen. All right, so it will process it. Those will become active in low levels of light, and it will only process images in either like black or white. So you can't really easily identify colors. Only your cones now, the reason why we have so much cones is to produce a sharp image, but it functions in high levels of light. All right, unlike the rod, sorry. You all understand? Wonderful. Wonderful. Okay, so the other questions we'll get to after we finish coordination by hormones. Right? And drugs. So let's go on to drugs now. Let's start that. Right, so talking about drugs. The term drugs is very broad, because most of the times when it is we hear drugs, we often think about, you know, um, marijuana, we think about cocaine, we think about heroin, anything like that. All right. Secondary, we will think when it is we also hear drugs, we think about pharmaceuticals. So we think about, drugs that you would typically buy in a pharmacy for your overall well-being. All right. So what we have to talk about pertaining to drugs is we just have to, talk a little bit about antibiotics, how antibiotics work. All right. And we have to talk about substance abuse and those things. Right. So let's go. So antibiotics. Basically, antibiotics kill bacteria, but they do not harm other living cells. All right. Now, a lot of your antibiotics are actually derived from fungi. All right. What happened is that these microorganisms naturally produce the antibiotics as a defense mechanism, in order to kill any other bacteria that would create, competition for food resources. All right. So that's like their own weapon. And we harvest this weapon to utilize within our bodies to kill off bacteria as well that would be making us sick for any particular reason. All right. Now a lot of the antibiotics, your doctor would prescribe you to take a particular course of antibiotics in order to get rid of the bacteria within you. Now, one particular antibiotic that we use quite often is penicillin. We all know about penicillin. Some are even allergic to penicillin. All right, so persons like that would have to be very careful when they're taking any type of medication. They have to make sure that it doesn't have any penicillin in it. And you have the various types of penicillin, and you'll be able to know penicillin by the ending. So like you have amoxicillin, the illin is still a part of the ending, so therefore you'll be able to recognize that it's a penicillin containing compound. All right. You have amoxicillin, oxacillin, and stuff like that. So you have different varieties of penicillin. And penicillin comes from a fungus called penicillium. Now, it typically would have grown on decaying fruit, but now scientists are able to actually manufacture or create penicillin, the penicillium bacteria, right? The penicillium fungus, in order to get the penicillin from it. In later lectures, we're going to actually look at how penicillin is produced and how they're actually able to cultivate the fungus and extract penicillin from it. All right. Now, penicillin typically works by preventing the bacteria from building cell walls. So a bacteria spreads because it is able to build cell walls and replicate itself, right? Once that process is inhibited, the bacteria will be destroyed. And that is how penicillin works, all right? And it only can work for bacteria. It cannot work for viruses, all right? Because of how, imagine the penicillin is only there to stop bacteria from, building their cell walls. So therefore, it cannot work against viruses because viruses do not put up cell walls. Anybody knows how viruses replicate in the human body? Anybody knows? They very good. They take over your cell thingy and replicate themselves. To replace the thingy is actually a DNA. So what happens is that your viruses, they inject themselves. They inject their DNA into your cells. So basically, they hack your DNA to reproduce themselves. So they overwrite your genetic code according to the code that they will have, And from that now they are able to grow, to control the cell and replicate, right? So it is not kind of mean, that's very mean. That is like, you know, I mean, we have human hackers, but inside your body, you have hackers as well, these microorganisms. So even the coronavirus as well, that's how it is actually able to enter in, because it will hack the DNA of your cells. All right. And the virus would actually um, hide inside your cells. So therefore, your immune system would take a while before it would even pick up that, you know, it's an imposter. And then even when your immune system picks up on it, it will just recognize that it's an abnormal cell, and it will attack the whole healthy cell to kill the virus as well. And when that happens, now you will have, you know, you will have repercussions on your body. All right. That is what happens with the coronavirus as well. When it enters into your healthy respiratory cells, all right, the linear respiratory tract, um, it would force your immune system to attack those cells. And in that process, it kills off your healthy cells. And then when those cells die off, it will actually, hello? Oh, I thought somebody was going to say something. Right, so when that happens, it yeah, it will kill off your healthy cells, and then it causes an inflammation to be produced, and yeah, it's, you would eventually just drown basically in your own body. In the worst case scenario, that's what happens. Yeah, it has all of those, it is designed like that, so that it could stick to a surface. Once it sticks to its surface, it would be able to inject itself into your DNA. Yeah, they're all dreading know. And that's why even for the coronavirus, they tell you to wash your hands and sanitize, because what happens is that it will stick to surfaces because it has like a kind of fatty layer on the outside. So if it is you just use water, remember oil is resistant to water. Oil and water don't mix, right? So you want to get rid of it. So that's why it is essential for you to break it down using either alcohol or soap, any one of them. All right. Yeah, all of them, they look really weird. And honestly, everybody would keep the tail inside if they were able to see the virus as it's spreading throughout the air. But because it's so small, it is considered to be a microorganism. We can't see it. But then you'll only know that it enters you when, you know, it has the effect on your body that it would have. Right? So yeah, they're very weird looking and they're very devious looking. I don't know if you'll remember how the virus looked like these little mini cyborg alien invaders when we were doing diseases and immunity. I showed you what it looked like. And all they have is just basically a lock-in mechanism to basically attach itself onto a particular cell, and then it has its DNA on the inside. And yeah, once they attack, they inject its DNA into you. Yeah, they look disgusting. Yeah, bacteriophages as well. They look like aliens. And hence the reason every single day that we live, it is a constant warfare. We are under attack even now. This is a war that we are fighting. Without nuclear missiles or whatever, it's an army, it's a viral army that we are fighting up against. And even without this pandemic, right, on a day-to-day basis, your body is constantly at war with all of these pathogens, these microorganisms. And that is why, you know, you're supposed to keep your immune system as healthy as possible. You're supposed to practice daily sanitizing, you know, on a regular basis. You're supposed to wash your hands before you eat and things like that. All right. So they're always trying to enter your body somehow. No, they wouldn't kill each other. They wouldn't work against each other like that. Your virus will go about attacking your cells, and your bacteria will go about causing infection. You can have viral and bacterial infections at the same time, both destroying your body, but they wouldn't work against each other. Yeah, they're all deadly. Yeah, it is unfair. So one, just getting your immune system to attack, or both of them, they get in your immune system to get busy on them, and they producing their own stuff, and just killing you off slowly but surely, killing off your cells. Very unfair. So to treat the bacteria, we could use antibiotics like penicillin to treat bacterial infections. But for a virus, you actually need more like a vaccine, all right, in order to become immune to a particular virus. So like, for example, you can have infections on your skin. You can even have ear infection, dental infection, respiratory tract infections caused by bacteria as well. Urinary tract infection is caused by bacteria. Gonorrhea is also caused by bacteria. All right, so all of these you would use antibiotic like penicillin to treat. Now, you have to be very careful when you are actually treating bacterial infections, because you can have this bacteria that are resistant to antibiotics. So what happens is that, but if it is for every bacterial infection, you take a particular type of antibiotic, you are putting pressure on the bacteria. By you putting pressure on it now, you will force it to want to develop a resistance to survive. So it will eventually become resistant to a particular antibiotic. So this is why, scientists are constantly looking to upgrade the whole antibiotic composition, all right? Because bacteria are becoming more and more resistant to antibiotics. And that is why antibiotics should only be taken for a certain amount of time and not be taken all the time for everything, all right? You're working against yourself there. All right. It's all about survival of the fittest. So if it is you keep killing it off, it will eventually become immune to it. You will put pressure on it so that it will want to evolve and become resistant to antibiotics. All right. It's the same thing, like it kind of similar to cockroaches and bop, right? Or mosquitoes and particular mosquito repellents. Eventually, by using the same chemical substances to kill them off, you're putting that pressure on them to eventually evolve to becoming resistant to the bug. So hence the reason you might find, like, the bug not working again, this thing not dying, right? Or whatever it might be. And really and truly is because over the years, the chemical formula of the bug ain't changed, but you're putting that pressure on the cockroach to evolve, and then it eventually evolves, and you're using a whole can of buff and it's not killing them. All right. So the same thing happens with bacteria and it becoming resistant to antibiotics. All right. Okay, now we get to drug misuse. All right. So we know about heroin, right? Now, drugs, you utilize them in, okay, so you take medicines, you take pharmaceuticals, and you utilize them in certain quantities to help you, all right? Now, what happens is that you can become addicted or dependent on particular drugs. So like heroin is one such addictive drug, and it is produced from opium as well. All right, now a lot of opium or anything that is produced from opium is typically called opioids, and they contain chemicals like morphine and codeine that are used to, in certain quantities in medicine for pain relief. But you see, because you have them in certain quantities, if you keep taking it, a person could eventually become dependent on particular drugs. That's why you have people that are addicted to painkillers. Like House, who was addicted to Vicodin, right? You can have painkillers like that will get you addicted to it, right? So you have to be careful with how you use these things. Now, addicted, yes, sleeping tablets as well. Being addicted, not Panadol wouldn't provide an addiction, really. That would be entirely up to the person. All right, like for everything, yes, that's a pills, right? But not like Panadol and Tylenol and those things. Yeah, oxycodone and stuff. David Rell. David Rell. Oh gosh, I know he was excited for this topic, but excellent. Yeah, all of those things people would be addicted to, right? Yeah, a little too much, a little too much. Oh gosh. But what it is we call depressants, any drugs that are able to slow down the functioning of the brain. So heroin and even alcohol, they all slow down the functioning of the brain. So hence the reason misusing these things is not good. Because it will slow down like your breathing rate and how the hypothalamus functions. So even heroin dependent people, they lose so much weight because it eventually inhibits the body's natural response to when it is you are supposed to eat. So it wouldn't trigger an appetite in you, and heroin prohibits that from happening as well. So a lot of people become addicted to heroin because it actually allows you to feel the sensation of euphoria. So typically when people are going through they have like a lot of issues. Sometimes, I mean, you don't know what these people have going through. Some people have escaped death so many times. Somebody might find out that they were the product of somebody being raped, or it's like their parents try killing them. A whole lot of things that would have happened, and a lot of them just battling with finding out why it is they even alive. A lot of them want to find out the purpose and all of that. So a lot of people go through these things and they turn to heroin because it is something that enables them to have a numbing sensation for the pain, for these painful thoughts that they would be going through. And because of how good it makes them feel, they eventually become addicted to it. All right. And what happened is that endorphin typically reduces your pain sensations in your body, right? But heroin chemically changes to morphine when it enters into your body. And these morphine molecules can mimic or imitate endorphin, right? So therefore, these morphine molecules can bind to endorphin receptors. So typically, the receptors that would have normally just been able to receive endorphins can also receive the morphine because it assumes a particular, a similar shape to the endorphins. And that's why it would then be able to, attach on to the endorphin receptors. And therefore it would induce the sensation of euphoria, and it would reduce sensations of hunger and thirst and those things. Even pain, it would affect your mood, put you in a better mood, all of that. But you see, because it is acting in the place of the endorphins, it will eventually stop producing, it would cause your body to stop producing the real endorphins. And therefore, whenever you come off of the heroin and you don't use it, you would get like an increased sensation. So like whenever you're addicted to something, right? You would naturally, like if it is you're addicted to painkillers, for example, anytime you get a particular pain sensation, your brain now will magnify the amount of pain that you feel. So you develop a heightened dependency for that particular painkiller. And it's the same thing that happens with heroin. And that is how you eventually will always go for it. All right. Audacia, seeing a question, what makes us naturally release endorphins? Your body naturally produces that to calm pain. So whenever it is you are going through, anything, whether it be you get wounded or injured emotionally or even physically, your body produces that. Your body naturally produces that. And even exercise as well. It encourages you to produce more endorphins so that you can get a nice sensation after. And that's why exercise makes you feel good. All right. So the heroin now, because it is chemically changed to morphine, also helps you to produce this effect because the morphine can, combine or become attached to the endorphin receptors to produce now the same euphoric feeling that you would typically feel with your endorphin. All right, but that exercise is one thing that helps you to naturally release endorphins. All right, but other than that, your body will produce it to, help you fight off pain as well. And even for painkillers, you all know how painkillers work? I mean, you have pain, you take painkillers, and then you feel better, right? Now, what happens is that when it is you get injured, you have particular enzymes that are released as a result of it. All right, these enzymes cause pain, all right, to tell you that something is wrong. These enzymes are called COX enzymes, COX. They are called COX enzymes. And when it is you take a painkiller, it basically blocks the pain sensation of these enzymes. So hence now you are able to actually feel better. And that is how painkillers function and why we love them so very much. All right. Women, us women, we need our painkillers when that time of demand comes, right? Whenever it is you break a leg, an arm, a foot, something, or you fall down, you need painkillers to help reduce that sensation of pain because your body is producing that those painful enzymes. All right. So yeah. Apart from heroin, alcohol is also considered to be a depressant because it slowers the actions of parts of your brain, and which is why you're not supposed to be drinking and driving and those things because your reaction time for you to react to a particular situation is drastically decreased. All right. And what happened is that the alcoholism as well, somebody who drinks a lot can tend to become more aggressive. Okay. So because it could either increase aggression or it could increase depression. So some people when they drink they could become aggressive. Some other people when they drink they could become more depressed. So that's why people would end up just crying and all of their emotions would be, released. So it affects people differently. All right. And that is why as well, if it increases aggression, depending on the source of the aggression, when somebody drinks, it could trigger a lot of violent reactions and cause, crimes to be committed under the influence as well. All right. Okay. And yeah, sometimes what happens is that some people would want to feel pain.
Oh, no, back off on this thing.
Huh?
No, man, sorry. No, man. I'm doing something. I'm doing something.
Oh, okay. Right. So what happened is that a lot of people would want to feel okay. So take for example, okay, I'll give you all an example, right? When it is you're going through physical pain, right? a lot of times what you would want to do is you will want to inflict another type of physical pain to make your brain become distracted and focus on the other pain and not on the real pain that you're going through. So hence the reason inflicting pain has that sensation of feeling good, or it can. But I mean, it's short-lived, right? So like, for example, you I don't know, some parts of your body are hurting you and you cuff the wall. You, for a small period of time, by the pain you feel from cuffing the wall, distracts your brain so that your brain now will focus on that minor pain as compared to the major pain that you're experiencing. All right. So I think that is also one of the reasons why some people, when they're going through a lot of emotions, it's so difficult because I mean, life hard. We have to realize that life hard for a lot of people, right? And whenever it is, and emotions, how your body interprets emotions is that it it interprets emotions like physical pain. So stress and any kind of emotional trauma affects you internally as just as um like physical injury, like if somebody beat you up, and that is why you feel the way that you feel, right? So right, some could talk, some could some just prefer to bottle up their emotions and either inflict pain like cutting themselves. That is how a lot of people will cope with whatever it is they are going through as well. They will cut themselves. All right. Of course, when they're going through therapy, they will be persuaded away from that, and they would have to, they would learn how to, actually face what they are going through, and they would learn how to get through it. All right, and not numb the pain by, doing something else. So that is what they will learn in therapy typically. But yeah, so these are all pain numbing tactics that people would typically use, and alcohol is one of them. All right, alcohol, heroin, cocaine, all of these things. When it is you enter into that zone, you forget whatever you was going through, and then you become addicted because you want to always experience that feeling of euphoria, that feeling of just forgetting the pain. All right. Right. Now, we know that alcohol is dangerous, but what happens is that it really does shorten lifespan the more that you drink. All right. So, the more that you drink, it would lead to unconsciousness, can drive you to a state of coma because of excess dehydration, and it can cause death. All right. What happened is that a lot of people can end up suffocating on their own vomit because their airways become blocked by how much they throw up because of the sensation that they feel. All right. That is why when it is you're real drunk, a lot of people they throw up. All right, because of that the nausea, you feel dizzy, and all of that happens when it is you are high. Not only that, but remember, your liver is responsible for filtering your blood. So when it is you have excess alcohol, your liver is what is responsible for breaking down all of the excess alcohol in your body. And by you constantly drinking, you are overworking your liver, and then you will eventually damage your liver. All right, because you're overwhelming it. It's not supposed to process all that much alcohol, and then here you are putting in so much alcohol into your body. All right, so not only that, but it also damages your brain, because what happens is that the alcohol draws out water from your cells. So that is why you always feel so dehydrated, and when it is you are going through a hangover, you feel the way that you feel is because your body is dehydrated, and that is why you will crave for water, and you will want water. You A lot of people who drink as well will tell you that you often want to urinate a lot, and when you are urinating, all of this time you're drawing out essential water from your body because you are so dehydrated. All right. And when that happens, now it will cause your cells to shrink. And once your cells shrink, they become damaged. It causes damages in your brain because when your cells from your brain become damaged, those cells do not replenish themselves. They do not reproduce themselves. So once your brain cells are damaged, yeah, that damage is irreversible. Typically, what will happen is that the other parts of your brain now will have to pick up the slack. So even in patients who suffered stroke and part of their brain has been damaged, if they are able to get back proper function, is because they would have to go through therapy so to rewire their brains now. So all of the parts of the brain that would have been responsible for doing how you call it, whatever actions that it would have been doing, like talking, moving, and so forth. In order for you to get back this function, your brain now will have to find an alternative way to perform those same functions without, moving away from the damaged area, without utilizing the same areas that would have been used before. And it's the same thing that will happen, all right, once enough of your brain cells are damaged. Okay, so this is why hangovers feel the way that they do, and when people drink too much, these are all of the repercussions that it would have on your body. So yes, as David said, don't drink too much. I mean, y'all will become of that age where you will want to drink, you will want to taste what it's like. When you do, which I hope that is when you reach 50 years old, another time now, right? Just, everything in life is to be consumed in balance and in moderation. Anytime you get out of this balance, that is when you're going to have problems. Even wine is healthy to drink, not drinking a whole bottle of wine at once, but drinking enough, all right? No, not 15, 51. 51. Reverse those numbers, Missy. Right? Like a little bit of, like a little quarter glass of red wine when you are of age, of course, not anytime now, when you're in your 50s, right? Is actually good. It helps it helps to relax you, helps to de-stress, and it also improves digestion. So hence the reason the French and a lot of Europeans have that culture where they have like a glass of wine with their meals as well. It's typically on evenings. And yes, it contributes to good heart health as well, red wine, but certain red wines. So you'd have to find out which is the right one for you to use, okay? So yeah, all of these things are healthy. I mean, even like beer as well, it's good for you. It's a little bit is also good for your immune system, all right? Your digestive system, sorry. Okay, so, a little bit is good, but when it is you become addicted and you overdo it, that is when you're going to have problems. That is when you're going to have cirrhosis of the liver, and you can lose the entire family because of it, It's only in this day and age now alcohol safe in here because you need the alcohol from the hand sanitizer to sanitize yourself, right? That's the only time alcohol safe in here right now. Kidneys, like when you mean like when it says you have kidney stones? Nah, for that one, you'll have to drink a lot more water to flush out your kidney stones. A lot more water, and even coconut water as well, but not beer per se. Yeah, no problem. All right, so let's get to steroids. And we know of these steroids because a lot of gym junkies utilize these things when they are training, all right, in order to boost muscle production, all right? Not really. Typically, the thing to really use for that, if you want to flush out your kidneys, would be coconut water. Coconut water and regular water, all right? Because remember, the more beer that you drink, that will help you to be dehydrated. So that will be counterproductive in you trying to flush out your kidney stones. So that's why the doctor would recommend coconut water. No problem. Right. So anabolic steroids. Of course, these things are not good to use because they have a lot of negative effects, including mood change and all of that. People who are also on steroids who can become so angry that they end up committing murders. Right. So just as a person would become quite angry if it is they are addicted to alcohol, is like the same thing, except steroids I think produces more aggression than alcohol would in most cases, right? Now, hormones can belong to a class of chemicals known as steroids, right? So some examples of steroid hormones are like your reproductive hormones, like testosterone, estrogen, progesterone. So these are steroid hormones that are naturally produced in your body, all right? And what happened is that these steroid hormones, they build up cells, all right? They stimulate metabolic reactions in those cells that are responsible for building up larger molecules. So and those are called anabolic reactions, all right? So like testosterone will build up, your muscles, for example. All right. And that is why if a person is taking testosterone to transition into a male, right, taking extra testosterone, their whole physique will begin to look more masculine. All right. They won't look as like a dainty lady. They will develop more muscular structure and definition. All right. Even, well, men as well. Right? So, but you have steroid hormones which stimulate these anabolic reactions, and those are called anabolic steroids. Okay. Now, an example of a type of reaction that is stimulated by the anabolic steroids is the synthesis of proteins from amino acids, and the testosterone causes more proteins to be made in your muscles so that they become larger and stronger, like how Stewie looks here, all right, as a result of steroids, right? So they not only do they cause aggression, as you would notice, or problem either by experience or by knowledge as well. Steroids tend to cause severe aggression in those taking it. All right. It also prevents the body's ability to destroy pathogens, so it breaks down your immune system and it damages your liver. So while the steroids would be helping you to increase stamina, build muscle, and all of that, it is breaking down your body inside. So that's why it's really not good. And also, steroids can cause males to become sterile, as in when they're ready to have children, they won't be able to have children because their seed will no longer be fertile. All right. So all of these are side effects of steroids, and which is why they are not good to take. All right, tobacco. So we know that smoking is wrong. We know that smoking is bad, but why is it that it is bad? Oh, Nirvana, well, people take them even though they have side effects, like smoking. Smoking has so much side effects, right? But people, it's for the feeling. And then like for steroids, for example, a lot of people take steroids because they want to be the best in terms of their body. They want to build up their bodies to, a real insane level. They want to exceed in athletics. All right. So even societal and parental pressure could lead a lot of people to taking steroids, because sometimes if parents are, really pushing their children to be the best athlete or the best sprinter, right? Steroids is one way to help with that. And even bodybuilding as well. Sometimes, for a guy, society puts a lot of pressure on a guy to look a certain way. So if a man, for example, have a pot belly, right? And he have flabby chest and no six-pack abs and, no muscles and stuff. Society puts a lot of pressure on men to look that particular way. So therefore, with all of this pressure as well, it could cause somebody like a male to want to, you know, build up his body to look a certain way. All right, or even for his own personal self. Some people have real bad self-esteem, so to get faster results, they will take the steroids as well. All right, women too, especially all those female bodybuilders, who to get the results that they would want, they will take steroids as well. But of course, remember, these things are banned in competitions. So only if it's like for personal, then, you know, they will take it so that they wouldn't get disqualified. But yeah, they will still go for it because of the goal that they want to achieve, right? Right, so when it is you're talking about tobacco and cigarettes, of course, it becomes addictive because it is a stimulant and it affects the brain. It makes a person feel good. It makes a person feel alert, all right? It produces a calming sensation within the individual, and it will cause them to, you know, want to, that's why when somebody is stressed out, they will want to smoke. And or anything. A lot of people often tell you that they started smoking because of something that they would have been going through in life, right? That would have caused them to start to smoke. And that's how it happens most of the times, right? But what happened is over time, while you know you're busy feeling nice with the with smoking, it will damage your circulatory system, and it could also cause you to develop cancer, right? So the nicotine will cause your blood vessels to become narrower, and in essence, that will, you know, cause your pressure to increase, which will lead to hypertension. So that is how smoking leads to hypertension. Not only that, but smokers also have a higher chance of developing coronary heart disease as compared to non-smokers, because remember, you're already causing your blood vessels to become narrower. So when this happens with your coronary arteries, that is how you will develop coronary heart disease. And that is how smoking could lead to that, right? And then remember, there is tar that is found within the cigarettes as well. And the components of tar is actually cancer causing. When we speak about cancer causing, you know, substances, we call them carcinogenic. So carcinogenic means that they actually produce, well, cause cancer then, right? Now what happens is that those chemicals, now cancer causing chemicals, they sort of like cause cells to divide uncontrollably, which is how tumors are formed, right? So what happens is that if they cause cells to, you know, just be divided uncontrollably, what happens is that it will just grow and grow and grow until a mass is formed. When that mass is formed, parts of it could be broken off and could, you know, go, it could be transported around your body. And apart from that, when that happens, you would have these cellular deposits, right? You would have these little mass deposits. And wherever parts of this tumor is deposited around your body, it will be stuck there, and then it will continue to grow. And that is how you could have cancer or tumors that could grow around your body, and then you can just end up being a cancer infected person, right? But specifically, the cancer related to cigarettes and smoking, that has to do with cells in your respiratory passages and your lungs. So that deals with respiratory cancer. All right, but not saying that if it is you're developing a tumor in your respiratory passages, that it will only stay there. Nope. Because remember, your whole circulatory system around your body is connected. And what happens is that, you know, it will travel through your blood and it will be deposited in different areas of your body and continue to grow. Okay, so it's really, really not good to smoke. And then some might say, well, okay, I can't smoke, so I'll go and vape. Worse yet, because the chemical components that they found in the vaping liquid, right, is actually cancer causing, and I think to even more dangerous level than cigarette, right? Because it is the flavoring, to get the flavoring, the chemicals that they use they are carcinogenic, right? Not only that, there have been many reports where the where vapors, their lungs have actually collapsed because of the chemical components, right? People start to vape because they think it's healthier as compared to smoking, but it really isn't, right? They may think so because, yeah, they might think it's just water vapor, but yeah, what happened is that they will think that, oh, okay, yeah, it's healthy and whatever, and that it's, water vapor and just flavored water vapor, but it's not, right? And a lot of studies have proved it, and a lot of people have died from vaping even faster than they would have if they were just smoking. But both of them produce deaths like that, right? And what happened is that, it just, yeah, a lot of people get, trapped like that. So it's really a sad reality. Both of them are just as bad. All right, but I really think that the vaping could be a little bit worse than smoking, but both of them, they are horrible. All right. So at the end of it all, abstinence is the best thing, just stay away from those things, because I mean, if it is, that food, like a particular type of food is laced with poison, you wouldn't go and eat it. But it's the same thing as you taking up a cigarette and smoking it each time. It's like if you just willfully go and you're eating poison. That is what happens every single time you smoke. All right, you're willfully doing that harm to your body. All right. If you see the lungs of a smoker as compared to that of a healthy person, is a drastic difference, and you'll end up suffering a lot more. You might smoke, you might want to smoke because of the nice feeling that it'll produce, but then down in the future you'll end up real suffering, and then you don't want to live a life of regret where you say, oh gosh, if only I didn't know I would have ended up like this, I wouldn't have started. You don't want to end up in a place like that. So just, even if the urges come, or you might want to try it because of your friends doing it and whatever, just always think about the long term, right? And always think about the type of life that you would want to imagine for yourself. And every time you're imagining that life for yourself, make sure that it is the best version of you possible and the best life possible, right? Never set your goals low. Always have high goals so that you will become, encouraged and motivated for that, to achieve those. Okay. All right. So apart from all of that, you also get carbon monoxide from smoking, right? Now, remember, carbon monoxide, it prevents it actually inhibits or prevents the absorption of oxygen by hemoglobin in your blood. So hence the reason you could, you can get carbon monoxide poisoning, all right? And you will not have as much oxygen as compared to if you weren't smoking. So persons who are smoking, they won't be able to do a lot of physical activity as for as long as a person who not smoking, because they will always be breathing heavily because they're not getting enough oxygen because of the carbon monoxide from the cigarettes, right? And then, well, COPD, chronic obstructive pulmonary disease, those happens when your white blood cells try to remove particles of carbon and other materials that would get trapped inside the lungs. But you see, in order to do this, your white blood cells have to secrete chemicals, and those chemicals could also damage the lungs, and then it will cause the walls of your alveoli to break down in a phenomenon known as emphysema. All right, so it will cause your own body to work against itself in that regard. Right? Sure, Dimitri, let me hear a question now. Yeah, secondhand smoke is very, very dangerous. Because you see, at least for a smoker, right, who is pulling from the cigarette, they still have a filter, right? But you see, from you standing and inhaling cigarette smoke, you don't have a filter, so you get in the full brunt of all that smoke and tan, everything. So that you could, your lungs, after enduring that for a while, your lungs would end up actually looking as though you were a smoker, even though you never puffed a cigarette in your life, you never had that, it would still be just the same as a smoker. So it is very dangerous. And all of these side effects as well could also happen as a result of, you know, inhaling secondhand smoke. You're welcome. Right, so smoking, in addition to all of that, and this is the final point in this slide, it causes what happens is that it will cause mucus buildup, right? So typically your cilia, sorry, the cilia, which lines your trachea, which is your windpipe, sweeps mucus back up your mouth, right? This is a defense mechanism in your body that whenever it is you whenever it is, how you call it, like, remember we spoke about how bacteria and pathogens are trapped in your mucus, and they, when it is you swallow, either the cilia can push it back up, or well, if you swallow, that will go down straight to your stomach, right? Now what happens in this case is that you also have mucus that is produced, right? And your cilia is supposed to, which are just tiny hair-like projections, which would sweep the mucus back up your mouth, and then you will hark and spit it out, right? But in a smoker, that cilia is damaged. So therefore, the mucus will not have anything to, you know, cause it to come back up. But instead, it would remain, and large amounts of mucus would just build up, and it will become filled with bacteria, and it will just become a whole bacteria infested environment, and that will cause infections like in your lungs and your bronchi. Right? So it will be difficult for oxygen and carbon dioxide to diffuse between the alveoli and your blood capillaries, or the blood found in your capillaries. And then you will have problems breathing. And that is how you could eventually end up living on a respirator for the rest of your life. All right? Okay, so that is our little discussion on drugs. Talk to me. Are you all okay? Do you all understand? Wonderful. That's no problem. Yeah, it really is just reviewing. Yeah, Dave, Dimitri, let me hear a question. If there are any treatments to bacteria-resistant drugs, so like, you mean like, okay, let's just say a particular type of bacteria is resistant to a particular drug. Like if you have alternative treatments for it? Yeah, you would. So because of the fact that bacteria could become resistant to drugs like your antibiotics, scientists, they are continuously working on developing that. You cannot, because of how deadly and how much they could evolve, you cannot keep the same treatment. So you cannot keep the same types of drugs, right? So you have to continuously, work on changing that. So because of that now, yeah, you will have alternative treatments as well. Because remember, we constantly have to keep innovating. We have to keep building up, stuff as well. We have to keep having treatments and drugs that, are stronger so that they'll be able to effectively fight off the bacteria. So, yep, answer is yeah. All right. Okay, so I'm just going on to the next one now. Right, so it's not much that we have to do basically in this one. We have to learn about hormones in humans. So we have to learn about, your endocrine glands and what they secrete. We have to learn about adrenaline and the effects of adrenaline on the human body. We're gonna learn about how insulin, estrogen, and testosterone functions. We're gonna learn about plants and the responses of plants to specific stimuli. And we're gonna learn about auxin. So I'm gonna introduce you to auxin, which is a plant hormone. And then finally, we're gonna just talk a little bit about weed killers, and that's it basically, right? Okay, so what happens is that in addition to, your body communicating and transmitting messages via chemical, electrical impulses, you also use chemical transmitters, as we learned by the neurotransmitters as well. But not only that, even just now, we were talking about excretion again. And we saw that when there is not enough water in your body, that your hypothalamus stimulates the pituitary gland in order to secrete ADH, which is a chemical transmitter, right? It chemically transmits the message to your kidneys, telling it to reabsorb as much water as possible. All right. So that is an example of a chemical transmitter. And you have typically when you have a chemical that transmits information from one part of a body to the other part, it is called a hormone, right? So that ADH as well will be considered to be a hormone. Even growth hormones as well, for you to grow and even for certain parts of your body to grow, those are hormones and secreted by your endocrine glands. All right, and you have several of them throughout your body. All right, what happens is that just as remember how it is we discussed that ADH is transmitted, it enters directly into your bloodstream, right? So hormones are like that. When they are produced, they are released directly into your bloodstream, and they are not released into any particular ducts or glands or anything. They go directly into your bloodstream, they dissolve. And then they are designed now to specifically target only certain organs. All right, and these are called target organs. So it's not to say like if the pituitary gland releases ADH, if it has to worry about that ADH going to your heart instead of your kidneys. No, these are specifically designed chemicals that are secreted to target specific organs, and they will only go and will only have an effect on those particular organs. They will not affect any other organ. All right, so it's not to say like ADH will cause the heart to pump faster or pump slower. No, your body a lot more organized than that, right? So yes. these are where your endocrine gland, your various endocrine glands are located, where hormones will be secreted, okay? You all have to know the position of these endocrine glands, which is just basically this picture, all right? So we have pituitary gland, right, which I showed you all a scan of the brain and where it is actually located. So this is another image, just a proximity of where the pituitary gland is located. Over here, you have your thyroid glands. Here you have your adrenal glands. Your pancreas is here, which also secretes hormones, right? And then you have testes or ovaries. Testes would be found in males. You males should know this. No ovaries to be found in a male. Ovaries are found in females, right? Which are also necessary for producing hormones, which we know. Like, for example, in our ovaries for women, we produce hormones that are responsible for stimulating egg production, all right, and so forth. So when it is, next we have to get into reproduction. That is our next topic on the list. So once we get to that, yeah, we'll explain all of that in more detail, all right? Okay, I'm seeing somebody have a question. So let me see, let me get this right, David. Two things, there's two things real exciting you, boy: drugs and reproduction. Oh my gosh. All in not easy, you know. Yeah, tomorrow I'm hoping to start reproduction with you all. So once I just finish up this, which is not much, we'll start the reproduction. So, and reproduction is a whole 2 classes because it's a big topic, right? We have reproduction in humans to do, and we have reproduction in plants to do. No, we're not going to learn about plants have sex. No, right? Plants have sex as in gender, but not as in, you know, as you might think. So we're going to learn about that tomorrow. So it's going to be exciting. Always something else, you know. Don't know what to say. Right, so here we have your glands, hormones that are secreted, and we have the functions, right? And your adrenal glands, for example, is responsible for producing adrenaline, and that prepares your body for vigorous action. So you know how you typically talk about adrenaline rush? At some years ago, there was this article on the newspaper where a woman she actually lifted a car just to save her son or her daughter, her child. Her child was trapped under the car and she lifted the car to save the child, right? And she did this with her bare strength. Now, what would have done this is because her adrenal glands produced the adrenaline in that response, so that she would have been able to, because of how badly she wanted to save her child, the adrenaline was rushing through her body and it produced this kind of extra strength that she was actually able to lift up the car and, you know, pull her child out. I don't know if anybody, right, Emily remembers, right? So that is an example of an adrenaline rush. Yes, like Naruto. Just like Naruto. Anytime you see that happening, on even when it is, you know, but it's got hyper for Naruto. But I can understand it's totally with it, right? But even when, like, if it is you see a bear, for example, that whole panicky kind of mode that you go into to get out of there, or like Jack Spanier, you walk in front of a jack nest and you see the nest get agitated. What will make you want to scamper away is the adrenaline that is produced in your body. All right, and that is what will actually make you scamper out of there. So the adrenaline produces this kind of you know, feeling that, okay, in danger, what happened is that your pupils widen, so that you are able to see the danger a lot clearly and you are able to move. It causes your heart rate to increase a lot in the case where you are scared. It will cause your heart rate to increase a lot so that your blood could be pumping and respiration could occur so that you could just take off with a speed. And then when the adrenaline goes down, then you will start to feel the effects of it, right? But you wouldn't feel it when you're going through that adrenaline mode. You will just feel a rush, all right? Pancreas produces insulin, all right? It produces also two hormones, insulin and glucagon. Insulin reduces concentration of glucose, and glucagon, it increases your concentration of glucose in the blood. Your testes produce testosterone for you guys. That will cause the development of your sexual characteristics and also the male organ. And estrogen in female causes, of course, sexual characteristics to develop, and you know, it will control the menstrual cycle as well. All right, so for you to develop, you know, your hairs to grow and, you know, everything that happens to you during puberty, testosterone and estrogen will be responsible for that. Okay. All right, so this is what I was just talking about. Adrenaline being produced in your adrenal glands. It is produced when you get like sensations of fear, fright, excitement. It triggers the brain to send impulses along the nerve to your adrenal glands, which will henceforth cause them to secrete adrenaline into your bloodstream, and then this is the effect that will happen. The name of the effect is called fright or flight response, and it's how you respond in imminent danger, when you sense that you are in danger, okay? Adrenaline will make your heart beat faster, causing your breathing rate to increase for more oxygen and more blood, so that respiration could occur at a faster rate in order for you to escape. Your pupils dilate, they become wider, enabling clearer vision, and your liver is triggered by the adrenaline to release more glucose, so it breaks down glycogen, any stored glycogen, it breaks it down to glucose, so that goes into your bloodstream, and so that it could provide your, you know, your muscles and your cells with the glucose it will need to release energy. Even when it is your body going through some sort of traumatic experience, like for example, people who even suffer from UTI, right? A lot of patients have, you know, reported that, you know, the concentration of glucose in the urine is a lot. And that is honestly because your body would produce adrenaline because it senses that something is wrong. So when it is, you know, you're going through that sensation, it will cause your body to release more glucose so that it could help you cope with whatever it is you're going through. So in, you know, certain traumatic experiences like that as well, your blood glucose level will increase naturally. It's not to say that you're diabetic, all right? All right, so this is the difference between your nervous system and your endocrine system, all right? Your nervous system, both of them are responsible for communication, right? They help to regularize bodily functions, and they just basically help with the overall functioning of your body, right? But they are different in the sense that your nervous system is made up of neurons. Your endocrine system is made up of secretory cells which secrete hormones. Your nervous system involves information being transmitted in the form of electrical impulses, whereas your endocrine system transmits information in the form of chemicals called hormones. Your nervous system transmits, you know, these electrical impulses along nerve fibers, whereas your endocrine system carries these chemical hormones that are dissolved, well, causes them to be dissolved in the blood plasma. All right. Your nervous system impulses are travels very quickly, but in the endocrine system, they are traveled slowly according to your blood pressure. All right. And nervous system, the effect of a nerve impulse usually only lasts for a short time, but you see for an endocrine response, it typically lasts longer. All right. If it's a growth hormone, that will linger on. If it's secreted into your kidneys for reabsorption of water, that will last not as short, but not as long either. So somewhere in between, okay? So you'll need to know the difference between the nervous and the endocrine system, and just basically everything that makes the two different and the two unique, all right? And how they both act in communicating with the rest of your body. Okay. All right, you're good with me so far? All right. Okay, so once you're fine, the final thing that we have to talk about are plant hormones, right? And plant responses to stimuli. Now, what happens is that plants don't have a unique, they don't have a nervous system as we do, but yet they are still able to respond to stimuli. All right, so what happens is that if a plant grows towards a particular stimulus, then it is said to be a positive response. But if it grows away from it, then that is said to be a negative response, right? What is responsible for this is that, you see, the stimuli that plants could react to are two things. Plants could react to light and it could react to gravity. And the overall response by a plant, all right, to one of these stimulus is called tropism. All right, so you have two terms. You can have phototropism or gravitropism. Photo, meaning light, is the response of the plant to light, and gravitropism has to do with the plant's response to gravity. Now, let me tell you all how this works. You'll notice that plants always grow upright and they always grow upwards and out towards the sun. That is the plant's response to light. It will grow towards the light because, remember, plants rely on the sun for photosynthesis and all of that. So it will grow towards the light. But what happens is that plant shoots will not grow downwards. Only roots grow downwards, because roots are supposed to respond to gravity, and that is the root response to gravity. Roots are supposed to hold the plant together, well, hold it upright. So hence the reason only shoots can grow upwards, but roots will have to grow downwards because they are responsible for the stability of the plant, the overall stability. Okay, now, right, so that is how you have the two responses of the plant. Now, there are hormones. There is one particular type of hormone in the plant that is responsible for the shoot growing how it grows, right? Now, you have just under the tip, just by the tip of the shoot is where you have receptor cells in a plant, and the effectors are just below the tip. So at the tip, you get the sensors to sense the stimulus, but just under the tip now, you have the effectors, which would be able to allow the plant to grow in a particular direction. All right. Now, what is responsible for the plant reacting accordingly is a particular hormone that is called Oxen. All right. This is your plant hormone. We have chemicals, we have chemical impulses, but plants have Oxen, and this is produced naturally at the tip of the shoot. Now, just to summarize all of this, auxins are what is responsible for the plant growing, right? Now, it is light sensitive, so what happens is that these auxins, when it's produced, it moves away from the sunlight, and wherever the auxins are mainly concentrated, that is where you would have growth taking place. Now, this might sound a bit off, so I have a video to show you all on this, so hopefully it could help out with that. All right, so let me just organize it for you. So I have one on tropism that will explain. Just bear with me for a second. Okay, so this is one of them. Oh. Everybody's seeing, right?
If a plant has enough water, minerals and energy, it will grow, right? Well, sort of. But there is more to it, like why do plants bend towards the light and not just grow straight? And why is it that the stem grows up but the roots grow down? It isn't as if the plant has eyes to tell it where the sun is. You should already know about tropisms, so phototropism and geotropism. But if you have forgotten, watch our video called Plant Hormones, Tropisms first. But how does it actually do this? Having been made in the tips of the stems and roots, auxin is moved in solution by diffusion to older parts of the plant. In the stem, the auxin causes the cells to change in elasticity. More elastic cells absorb more water and can grow longer. Strangely though, stems and roots respond differently to high concentrations of auxin. Whilst the stem cells grow more, the root cells actually grow less. So auxins make plants grow. But why do they bend towards the light? How do they know to do this when they don't have eyes? The bending happens because the light hits on one side more and breaks down the auxins on that side of the stem. So then growth slows down on the light side. The faster growth on the dark side causes the shoots and leaves to turn towards the light, which is ideal for the plant for photosynthesis. Auxin is produced in the tips of growing shoots. If the tips are cut off, then no auxin can be produced, and so no plant growth. If the tips are covered, whilst auxin is still produced, light cannot break it down, and so phototropism cannot occur. The plant just grows straight up and does not bend towards the light. Pretty straightforward so far. Now let's switch it up a bit. Auxins have the opposite effect on root cells. In roots, auxins cause less growth. The shaded side of roots contain more auxin, and so they grow less. This enables the light side of the roots to grow more and bend away from the light. And if that wasn't weird enough, we have the opposite happening with auxins to gravity too. In a horizontal root, the bottom side contains more auxin and grows less. So the root bends downwards in the direction of gravity. So positive geotropism. But of course, the stem responds differently. In a horizontal stem, again, the bottom side contains more auxins because it is less directly hit by sunlight. But because auxins cause growth in stems, the bottom side grows more, causing the stem to bend upwards, against the direction of gravity. So, negative geotropism. But I'm giving auxins too much credit. They don't work alone. They have a partner in crime. Cytokinins. You don't need to know anything about these hormones, other than the fact that they work alongside auxins. There is another plant hormone, however, that you do need to be aware of. Gibberellins. Once a seed germinates, the roots and shoots start to grow. But for this, the seed needs energy. Luckily, the seed releases a hormone called gibberellin, which causes the starch in the seed to turn into sugars and provides the seed with energy to grow. As well as causing shoot growth, gibberellins can also stimulate flowering and the production of fruit in some plants, and they also work with auxins to cause stem elongation. So now we know all about how plant hormones work. Have a think about how they could be used. We will discover some uses in our video on how we use plant hormones.
Okay, so basically the video was explaining about how oxen works, right? So let me just go to, no, these are the terms, right? Gravitropism and phototropism, right? Gravitropism has to do with gravity and phototropism has to do with light. So let me explain it to you from this picture, right? Auxin is made in the tip of the shoot, right? Just as the tip, you have cells which make this hormone, right? Now, what happened is that the auxin, it will gather here, yes, but auxin is responsible for the growth, for cell growth, and hence it is responsible for the shoot growing. Now, in even light, meaning that if light falls evenly on the shoot, you will see how these little auxins, characterized by the little black dots, eventually and evenly diffuses down the shoot. So therefore, everywhere where the auxin diffuses is actually going to grow, all right? Because that is the effect that auxin has on those cells. So it moves away from the light, all right? Or it is broken down by the light, okay? So it's like when the sunlight falls on it, it causes the auxins to move and diffuse across the plant, right? And it will move in the direction away from the light. This is an even light. But you all would notice that some plants would grow a little bit bent, all right? This is because, again, the auxins move away from the light. So look here, this is not even light. This light is coming from this side only. So notice that the auxin is produced here, but because the light now is on this side, it's still diffusing down because it's getting light, but it will only cause it to diffuse down on one side and away. It's not going evenly. So only where the auxins are being distributed, that is where you are going to have growth. All right, so all here where the auxins are being distributed, that is where you're going to have growth, and that is why the plant will grow the way that it is growing. And this side is not growing to keep the plant growing upright because no auxins are here. All of the auxins have gone to the side. All right, so auxin typically will concentrate on the shady side, right, the side away. So it moves away from the light, and wherever the auxins are concentrated, that is where you are going to have growth taking place. Do you all understand that? It's easier than the central nervous system. Okay. All right, now what the rest is basically saying, just to wrap up, he was describing what happens, you know, in a seedling, right? So the radicle, no matter how the seed is planted, will always grow downwards because the root now is supposed to be in the soil. So hence that is how it will respond to gravity, right? And yeah, it will always go downwards. Now what happened is that the auxins have the opposite effect. So even though auxins will be produced, it slows growth on the side. So it would not enable the shoot to grow. It wouldn't enable the radicle, sorry, to grow anywhere up and out. But because it slows growth on the side, it forces now the radicle to grow downwards. And that is how auxins act on the radicle. But in the case of a shoot now, like here, right, it will cause the shoot to always grow on the side where the light will be. So like what they did with this experiment is that they placed these two plants in a dark room, right, on their side. And where the auxins would have been gathered at the tip here, right? This is where you would have the majority of the auxins being gathered because it's in a dark room, right? So hence the reason you will have growth like this. And it still continues to grow upwards because that is where how the plant's supposed to grow. That is how the plant responds to that stimulus, right? It will always grow in the direction where the sunlight should be, where the sunlight is. All right, so and wherever you have the concentration of auxins, that is where you're going to have growth taking place. All right, so this is the experiment that they had done. And remember, if it is you have a plant growing in a dark area, it will not grow as a healthy green plant. It will grow kind of, sickly looking, right? That is what is called etiolation. So whenever it is you have a seedling that grows in the dark, it will become tall and pale. And what happens is that chloroplasts do not develop properly in the dark either. So you'll notice that the plant leaves would be yellow and discolored. And you would notice that the stem is very weak, but it will be tall but pale, right? So even in darkness, you will have your auxins being distributed evenly around the tip so that the shoot now will grow rapidly upwards. But you see, proper development wouldn't occur because of the lack of light. And because you don't have that light, chloroplasts will not be able to develop. So hence, the leaves and the plants would grow yellow and thin, and they would have smaller leaves, and it wouldn't look as a normal healthy plant. All right, so plants like these are etiolated. So this is the process of etiolation. All right, now the final and last thing before I let you all go, just bear with me for a little bit. Weed killers. Let me tell you how a weed killer like 2,4-D works. It's a synthetic version of Oxen, right? So what happened is that the weed killers, well, of course, they are used to kill weeds, right? But they are selective. So when it is you use this particular type of weed killer, the weeds will be affected, but not the grass, because you want the weeds out. Okay, so let me tell you why they will want to apply a synthetic version of Oxen to the weeds. It's because when the weeds come into contact with the Oxen, it will grow the weeds rapidly, causing them to die off. And then in that process, they will just leave nutrients for the grass to grow healthier. All right, and that is how it works. And it is used by farmers to kill weeds growing on, cereal crops, for example, like wheat or maize. They will use that to grow weeds so that they will grow up fast and they will just die out. And then when they die now, it is actually nourishing and fertilizing the soil, so that, it will make things better for their crops. All right, so auxins, at the end of it, they are taking advantage of the fact that auxins cause growth. So because of that, it's like they extra fertilize the weeds so that it could, have a counteractive effect. It will grow out and then it will die and nourish the fields. How are you all? Was that okay? This one a little bit easier than the central nervous system. Oh, the central nervous system harder than this? I mean, sorry, easier than this? Okay, wonderful. Right, so you'll take some time, you'll go through it. I'll send you all of the stuff you need to know. Well, I know you all already have this PowerPoint. I sent it to you all last week. So any extra notes or the extra worksheet that I said I would make for you all, as soon as I'm finished with it, I'll send it off to you, okay? So y'all could work on that and always email it to me during the week now. In the meantime, y'all could take some time, get to become more familiar with these slides. I have the 2 videos to send to y'all based on this as well. And yeah, tomorrow we have class as normal from 5 p.m. to 8 p.m. And then we'll be doing reproduction. We'll start on reproduction, okay? So make sure you have a good grasp on this because we're going full steam ahead with reproduction. I know you all eagerly anticipate that. Oh gosh, yes. So it's gonna be an interesting one, all right? So make sure you get make sure y'all get enough rest because we're going to have a lot to discuss tomorrow with reproduction. So David and Dimitri definitely are now going to be answering most of the questions tomorrow. So looking forward to it, looking forward to a good discussion. Thank you all for bearing with me and for you know, attending the class today, for allowing us to finish off this topic. Thanks a lot for your attention as well. I know a lot of y'all are tired. So I hope that y'all are able to get some rest this evening and you know, even tomorrow as well. All right, so y'all take care. Enjoy the rest of your Sunday, what's left of the Sunday. And I would see you all tomorrow. If you all have any questions or anything, feel free to let me know. As soon as the meeting is finished converting as well, after it's ended, I'll send it to you via email as well, okay? So you all take care, have a wonderful Sunday evening, and until tomorrow again. All right, bye-bye, and stay safe.